Welcome to Saturday's Warrior, the channel where we talk all things BYU, Big 12, and realignment. There's a lot going on with that right now. But right now, we are more focused on BYU and its historic win, historic beatdown of Kansas State last week. And then we today are also going to start taking a look ahead at this week's game, do our predictions, and all that good stuff as well. So if you were as excited by that win over Kansas State as we are, we ask that you please like this video and subscribe to the channel as you follow all of our content throughout the season, as we'll do these weekly kind of wrap up of the previous game and look ahead to the new game. We keep picks each week. We'll put this out early in the week, and then later in the week we'll have a guest on to come and talk about their team, the opposing team, that week, to learn to get to know them a little bit in a Know the Foe segment. And then we like to go on live after the game, give real-time reaction. So plus all the other stuff we can squeeze in amongst that. So please do like and subscribe. And now, Adam, as I just mentioned, we are on live after the game. Usually you go to bed a little bit earlier. Don't stay up for the live reaction. This was a very late ending, but you, like many of us, could not sleep. And so you joined me, and we got to get into the game quite a bit. But there's a couple things. So we're not going to completely rehash the whole game. If you want our initial reaction and as we just sat there and basked in the glory of what was BYU football that night, we'll have a link here that you can go check out that video if you have not already. Adam, you had very early meetings in the morning. I think I lucked out that my kids were not feeling well. So while I still had to be up early, I did not end up going to church, and so I got a kind of a bye from that this week. So it looks like you've recovered a little bit. You don't look quite like Shrek here.
Yeah, I recovered a bit. Passed out early last night and tried to get my 12 hours of beauty rest to recover from that insanity. But yeah, it would have been a grind the next day had we lost a close one. But boy, when you thump a top 15 team and have one of the greatest wins in BYU history, there's just this glow that carries you through the day. It's magic. So exhausting, but man, that was fun.
Yeah, absolutely. So anyway, it was exhausting, but it was well worth it. And here we have, for any of you, and you may have seen on the thumbnail as you clicked on this video, but we have, I'm sure you've heard by now, the burrito, all the burrito Taco Bell stuff surrounding the game. I won't get too much into that, but a Kansas State fan did make some promises about that burrito if K-State lost to BYU. And BYU, if you didn't know by now, did in fact win. And let's see. So why isn't it letting me? Here we go. So my favorite post, there were lots of posts, but the fact that BYU football's official account got in on this, and was just Liv Moss, that
was pretty cool.
That
was pretty funny
tweet
stuff.
is just epic. That was that just made everything. Very funny stuff that they got in on it. There's a couple others that I thought were pretty good. I liked this one as Jay Hill prior to the game using it for motivation for the BYU team. It seemed to work. And then this one from Jeff Hansen, the Taco Bell Liv Moss student section, which I think BYU absolutely earned that. Which is a real thing, but it's very appropriate now for BYU's student section after all they did to help, because really that was a big part of the victory. Like,
huge.
I mean, we've always talked about it, but and teams always do. You have other schools, like A&M with the 12th man and all that stuff, but I mean, you could see it playing out in real time, that the other team was getting shaken. You could see them getting penalized because of it. And it was just fantastic. So everyone at the game, good work.
Even some of the players who talked about it post game said after the punt return for a touchdown or the scoop and score, they said they were a foot away from each other screaming about they couldn't even hear each other. It was so loud. and that's the magic of LaVell Edwards Stadium, man. That place is something else at night.
Yeah. So actually, I want to follow up on that real quick. I want to finish up on this thought is so while another fan had made a promise that he would get baptized if BYU won, and so it looks like so he posted this, and he's got a text exchange with missionaries saying that he's following through on his words. So we'll see what's happening. What's going to happen there, but somebody
That's good.
posted, between the burrito and then this guy, in terms of BYU football spreading the word, we kind of a net zero between the two fans there. But anyway, funny stuff. But yeah, so we all know that, we've talked about this with other in past years with ASU. We talk about with the Baylor game, and we know that Utah game. So of all those games, and maybe it's another one, which one stands out to you the most as like the most like impact the team has had, or the crowd has had on another team in giving BYU a win?
Yeah, I mean, for recency bias, you look at this one just because it clearly had such an impact on a freshman quarterback. You got to believe that rattled him. Besides that, I looked at the Arizona State game. I remember like 3 false starts in a row in that game. That was the game when Algier ran down after the interception and Thor hammered the guy who was going for a pick six, made him fumble it, and Jaron Hall recovered it. We got the ball back. All that insanity. It just felt like the crowd impacted that game tangibly. And so you do think back on the Baylor win and the Utah win. It's a tough place to play at night when the crowd's into it. It's so loud. I think that you look across the Big 12 and BYU has the highest stadium capacity. And outside of the Big 12, there's still not a lot. I mean, obviously you got the Big House that's almost double the size. You got some venues, Tennessee, that are just massive. But outside of those, there's not a lot that approach 65,000. And I think it takes teams by surprise because you're not accustomed to being not only in those environments, but those environments where all the fans are, fully engaged in screaming their lungs out at the opposing team. It's a very, very loud venue. And I don't know that it gets the reputation it deserves because it seems to take teams by surprise. It really does. I mean, they come in and they're like, yeah, we've been in big environments before, and no, LaVell Edwards Stadium right now doesn't carry the aura of a Michigan or Notre Dame or Rocky Top or something like that. But my goodness, 65,000 people screaming at you with all their heart. That's obviously it has an impact, and it has influenced games.
So I have not been at LaVell Edwards for a night game since this kind of environment has come. So whatever they're doing, so
Yeah.
people the people working on the in-game atmosphere and all that stuff, they do a fantastic job. And I was at the BYU Tennessee game, and that was a loud, wild environment, and that was crazy. And from what I saw last night, that Tennessee environment didn't even touch what we witnessed. I say last night, a couple nights ago, there at LES. But I saw this, and his watch. If you can't see it, it says loud environment, sound levels hit 100 dB, I guess decibels, even a few minutes and then it trails off. But
Yeah.
Getting a warning sign from his watch. So that's how loud it was. That his watch is telling him, "Get out of there! It's too loud."
That's awesome. Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Awesome environment.
um, but yeah, so I think I agree with you too. ASU maybe after last night, it was like, or the K State game, and then ASU where you could see them just making penalty after penalty when they're
Yeah.
backed
And,
up.
and you know who the quarterback was in that game?
Some guy, has he done
So,
anything else?
some guy that owns a Heisman now. Um, and which threw me off when he went to LSU. I thought, oh, LSU's not. I've seen Jalen Daniels play. He's not going to have a huge impact, and he just tore it up. Now he's doing great in the NFL. I mean, amazing, amazing athlete. I'm glad he found the right spot for him. But funny that Jalen Daniels was the QB in that game, and we still held him.
Yeah, surprised after we beat him, he didn't come join BYU.
Yeah.
We seem to like to get those guys. Oh, that's what we were just talking about. So Kelly Ford updated his projections now. BYU now to making a bowl game. He's still putting at 40% likelihood, but I mean, just a huge jump for BYU compared to where we were. It is. I should pulled up one of his rankings from the beginning of the season when BYU was down here. So certainly moving up. We still have a tough schedule, and we get into that, and we'll get into that more, I think, in the bye week when we want to kind of dissect the rest of the season and see how we think everything shakes up. But really nice to see, the BYU move up on these things, and people getting even more blue goggled than me. If you went on to 24/7's sports.com and they had bowl projections, I kept scrolling. I was like, where's BYU? Where's BYU? And get down to the bottom. You didn't see them before because they haven't projected as a 4 seed playing Georgia in the Fiesta Bowl, which that's even a little bit blue goggled for me.
Yeah. That's still to me a little out of reach. Not because we don't have the talent. I think we showed Saturday night that we do have the talent to do that, which was awesome. But to win the conference and to go to the playoff like that, it's more about consistency and can you do it week in and week out? And I think that'll be the question that they have to answer throughout the rest of the season, because the talent's there. If you're going to win like that against a team like Kansas State, you can go toe to toe and hang with anybody when you're playing your best football, which is something we haven't always been able to say about BYU. Some years you certainly can, but not every year. And this year it looks like they can if they're playing at their best. The question is, can you bring it every week, week in and week out? Because that's what you do to get to be able to sniff the playoff. And my goggles aren't that blue yet. I hope they will be.
I mean, that would be fantastic. I can't say I would, pull from my kid's savings account to go to this game to watch BYU get trounced by Georgia, but it would be awesome just to be there, and see our defense go toe to toe with the SEC. But the best part in this is Utah is another option in this spot. Utah's the other option
as an afterthought.
Yeah. I love that, and the Cameron Rising. So. A couple interesting stats real quick, and then I want to get into this. I just thought these were interesting. So exact same record as Utah, conference record, wins versus top 25, same point differential.
Wow.
For both, all the way across the board, which actually I should have done this one first because I want to come back to that. And then also BYU has 545 rush yards on 137 rushes and 4 rush touchdowns. BYU's defense has allowed 545 rush yards on 137 rushes and 4 rush touchdowns. So nice. Pretty wild stuff there. Very coincidental, but very wild. But going back to this, we can talk about this more as the season goes on. But right now, BYU and Utah both coming off of really big wins going into or off of this last week, beating 2 of the other favorites to win the conference and 2 of the original Big 12 members, and coming in and winning. And these schools from the state of Utah are kind of riding high right now. My question is, would you like to see both teams continue winning out? So leading up to the Holy War, it would be an undefeated matchup, really adding extra clout to it. Or are you still saying you just want Utah? You just want to see Utah win?
No, that's the dream, is to have them both undefeated in that game, have all eyes on the Holy War, as it should be, and to watch that game go down to the wire and them just duke it out. I mean, it would be that would be so much fun. That's exactly what you want. And so as a BYU fan, it's always hard to cheer for your rival, particularly one as divisive as this rivalry is. But that would be cool. I mean, that would be a moment for college football, and that would be a moment for this rivalry. And you look for those as a BYU fan. That's what you want.
Yeah, I mean, that would be an amazing scenario. I'm still not going to root for Utah to win games. But if it plays out that way, it'll be fantastic. And I wouldn't imagine, like, if both teams, again, there's a lot of football to be played. We know BYU's got a tough schedule. Utah, they're on their backup freshman quarterback who looks really talented but still young. So, I mean, there's a lot of ifs there. A lot of things would have to happen. But if it played out that way, I can't believe that wouldn't get a lot of national hype.
Huge.
Yeah,
College game day be there, Big Noon Saturday, something like that would come.
One of them would have to be there.
Yeah, absolutely.
So anyway, moving on to that. So as we mentioned, we've already kind of broke down the game. It was a lot of fun, but now's a chance to sit here and be maybe a little bit more realistic, look through not quite as blue goggles. Maybe they're just lightly tinted blue right now. But what as you've had a chance to sit on the game, go back, rewatch things and everything, and think about it. What are some other takeaways now that you have from that game, and anything that we didn't touch upon the other night?
Yeah, I think one that's really stood out to me is Satake and others have said we want to get better every game, and so much of what coaches say in press conferences and during fall camp, it's just coach speak, right? We're gonna go out there, we're gonna sports really hard, we're gonna sports harder than the than the other team. Like it all just melds together. So I've heard this a few times. Um, but you look at it, Connor Pay always says this in his podcast with Jake Hatch as well, and so he'll repeat this all the time. They want to get better every week, and it really stood out this week. They are getting better every week. Kalani brought it up in the post game discussion with Greg Wrubell and says we're getting better every week. We're tangibly getting, and it shows. It shows how good the offense, the offensive line, the blocking for Sione Moa. It all came together against a superior opponent. And so that's what kind of gives you chills about this season, is to say, are they really invested? Can they stay humble and hungry and improve every week? Because you look at the team that went out against SMU versus the team that went out against K-State, and those are different teams. You argue different circumstances, right? Different opponents. The ball just bounces other ways. But at the end of the day, they blocked better. They ran better. You could even argue in some cases they played better defense. I mean, it was notable, the improvement, and I think that attitude of getting better every week is coming through. Um, and as a fan, I kind of feel like, well, how much can a team really improve week to week? Like you did a whole year preparation from last year, and how much better are you going to be in a 4 week period of time? But those live reps mean a lot, and the team's starting to gel together. The offensive line is getting a rhythm, and you feel like if they can stay generally healthy, they might continue to improve and really become a force in late October.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great point. They really do look like it. And one of the things that we did talk about this was like the simple thing that yes, Jake Retzloff got sacked a couple times, but you saw him and he tucked that thing and held on tight, and he took the sack, which, yes, it would be preferable for him to get rid of it, and so he's got to work on that, but that would be the next phase. So you see progress. He wasn't trying to force the play. He had patience with it, and ultimately decided live to play another down. And that is exactly what you want to see. So that, again, evidence of that. One thing I saw with this, and I didn't want to bring it up because it was so awesome, was that punt return was not yes the Parker Kingston, obviously it was fantastic, it was amazing. We'll be watching that all year long, we'll be watching it for years to come. um that started off very poorly. And
Yes.
it was a very ill-advised move what he did, and it just happened to work out. And so it didn't just happen. I mean, they did a lot of right things after that, but that was one of those like Steph Curry moments where you're like, no, 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 no. Okay, yeah, he made that shot, and
Yeah.
we've all seen those plays with Steve Kerr where he's like, and then he's like, well, what do you do? It's Steph Curry. So, he pulled out one of those moments, and when it works out, it's fantastic. But
Yeah.
um, not sure I'd want Parker Kingston trying that out again, because that almost ended up as a safety, or at least like having us,
Oh yeah.
start off the possession within the 5 yard line.
Yep.
So
Yep. And he's caught a few trying to run backwards, right? Like he's trying to catch him like a wide receiver would on a route. And he's brought in a couple and he's dropped a couple. And it's an ill-advised move for a punt returner. He's got a ton of flash, a ton of confidence back there, but I think the coaching staff would prefer if he was not attempting that catch, because if he continues to do it, we'll lose one. We just will, and that's our special teams have been dynamic. Obviously, with the kick return and the punt return, the punt coverage has been good. You don't have a Ryan Rico back there who's just crushing it, but it's been good enough. The contain was something I was watching against Kansas State because they're so good at punt return, and the contain was good. Uh, all of that has been a positive. But the one thing we've struggled at is catching punts. And Keelan Marion was the other one. He dropped one in game one. So it's an issue. It's an issue, and if we don't correct that one, it's going to come back and get us. That's definitely a takeaway from this. Is yeah, you can't be dropping those. And it seems like in years past we've had slower returners, less dynamic returners, they just catch it. Run 3
Sure.
yards, but they just catch it.
Hobbs Nyberg, just
Yes.
catch it.
Yes.
At least you
Just
knew he
catch
was
it.
catching it. Yeah, yeah. Where did he end up, by the way?
I don't know. I know he hit the transfer portal. I don't know where he landed.
Yeah. So with that, the good side of it, well, one, yeah, he scored the touchdown, but the blocking was there. It seemed like everyone was on the same page, and they worked together, and there were no penalties on it. In fact, the game was clean, other than like a garbage
Oh my
time and then an
goodness.
intentional penalty. So
That was amazing. 0 penalties for all intents and purposes. I mean, 0 penalties
mhm.
by your starters. That was incredible.
Yeah. Yeah, very clean game. And so when we talk about every facet, and that's why this just isn't it's just not realistic to think about this being replicated again, this type of performance. And that's not to take anything away because it's not, I don't want to say, oh, BYU was lucky. BYU was prepared and they played, but there are things that have to go your way. Like in a fumble, that ball will bounce any which way. And it happened to be in a position where BYU took advantage. Uh, Prasis was quick. He didn't, and he thought, a lot of times they say just jump on the ball. He was able to pick it up, and he picked it up well and ran with it. So, there was preparation, and they did things right. They did things right to hit the ball out in the first place,
Hmm.
Jack Kelly. And so I don't want to make it sound like that I'm taking anything away from what BYU did, but no matter what, no matter how prepared and hard you work and you go out there and perform, some of those things just are pretty rare to replicate, let alone doing all of those sequentially in the same game again. So it's not something we can necessarily count on, but what still gives me heart from that, to take away from it is that the team, we know that they're prepared, that they're playing loose, that they're playing smart, and that they're well coordinated. And again, going back to the penalties, that again, it's so easy to get a holding. They could probably call a holding call on almost any play, as we've seen like
Yeah.
some bad ones called on us already this year. And so the fact that there weren't any of those called, it's just it shows that there is a lot of discipline. But more penalties will be called on us again throughout the season. But again, I still take away a lot of positives from this, even though they captured lightning in a bottle in this game, but it still shows that they were able to do it. Other teams or this same team, maybe last year, given those same opportunities, probably would not have been able to capitalize the same way. So still the credit goes to the team, but we can't just count on, we did this against a really good team. Now we're going up against lesser competition. Clearly we'll be able to do it, because that is not necessarily the case.
Yeah, you got to have, and that's that improvement factor, right? Where the run game's improved, that needs to improve more, right? We can't average 3 yards a carry and continue to win in the Big 12. Your third down conversion rate is atrocious, and that sort of speaks to where the offense is right now. We're a big play offense. We move the ball in chunk yardage, so we don't have a ton of third downs because we're aggressive on first and second down. But that also means we're not running the ball really well. And until we can run the ball better and convert third downs consistently, that's going to become a problem, because there's going to be some team, right? You come out and you're just in a funk, right? Your defense doesn't perform the way you would want. You find yourself in a shootout. I mean, those games happen to the best defense, to the best teams. You just come out and you have an off night, and you got to anticipate that that's going to happen at some point. And can you win another way? We're seeing BYU win one way every week, which is with incredible defense. No matter what the offense throws at them, the defense is amazing, and the offense is consistent enough, right? They have the bursts against Wyoming and SIU, and then you've got the defense coming through in the clutch in SMU. But at some point, your team's going to stumble. You're going to have an off night, and can they dig deep when somebody puts up 35 points on us and come out with a victory? I think, again, those are the questions we got to answer to say, can we vie for a conference title? Are we that improved? Or are we just taking steps forward? And this is a 7 or 8 win season, which in my mind is awesome too.
7 or 8 win season would be fantastic. So, I mean, at this point, I feel like our expectations are shifting a little bit, and we're
They
thinking,
are.
can we dream bigger? Because before, like 8 for me was like the edge of
Of reality. Yeah. 8 was like I'd almost laugh, where some people were like, hey, I really think we could be an 8 win team. I'm like, let's not go there. 6 wins is great. 7 is a cherry on top. Let's call it good.
And for me, it wasn't that I didn't believe in this team. It was that, yes, I've heard it all before. And before I get my hopes up, because every year I'd be like, no, I'm not going to do it this year. I'm not going to get my hopes up. And then like the week leading up to football, I'm all in. I'm like, okay, I'm buying all the hype. And I was like, you know what, this year they could be right. Like their demeanor was different. It was that, as we've talked about, that quiet confidence. I was like, there's something about this team that has me believing. And that's why I was like, I do think they're a bowl game. In fact, if I was a betting man, I would have taken the over, because 4.5, I was like, there's no way this team is going to
Yeah.
not win at least 5 games. Like this team, there was something I believe in about them, but I was like, this is a really tough schedule. And, this team still probably has, some room to grow before they're at that point. But I mean, nobody, even the people that had us saying, oh, I think we win 8 games, nobody had us, our defense playing the way that it's
Yeah.
playing. And
Yeah.
so, it definitely has you thinking, okay, what is the realm of possibility now? Are we going to the Fiesta Bowl to play Georgia?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah. Yeah.
maybe not.
Maybe a bit of a stretch still, but to your point, you hear all that coach speak every year coming out of fall camp. Guys are flying around. We're looking stronger. We're looking big. I'm really excited. The offense is clicking. Da 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 da. Whatever it is, and you hear it every year. And of course, as a coach, you have to say that. No coach gets up in fall camp and like, well, we're going to win 2 games this year. I mean, I can just see them, the look in the guys' faces. We're just not going to be competitive. Nobody says that. Everyone comes out of fall camp saying we're going to a bowl game. We fix the problems. We're optimistic. That's what coaching is. That's what you do. And so as a fan, you sit back and you have no idea. And really, in the end, the team doesn't know. You may believe in yourself, but nobody really knows until you get out on the field and see how much everybody else has improved or not, and lay it on the field. And so that's what makes college football fun. But yeah, when the coaches are saying every year we've got this fixed, you kind of go in with a little trepidation as a fan, seeing how rough we had it last year.
Yeah. So quickly, I just want to look at because that is one complaint. Like BYU didn't do a lot offensively until all the turnovers. But to be fair, and we won the game with what was the total yardage? It was
241. Yeah.
241. Thank you. Yeah. So not a crazy amount, but when you look at the stat, when you look at it as yards available, so if you're starting at the 20-yard line, you've got 80 yards available ahead of you. Well, guess what? We were starting at the other 20-yard line or wherever, in best position, several times, and we got up quickly. And then, so not very many yards that were ahead of us, and we were able to score on those, capitalize on it. And then the rest of the game was a little bit more conservative play calling because we didn't need to, and we wanted to use that clock. And so for me, we can't read too much into that, but I do want to look at this because the beginning of the game told kind of a different story. It's crazy that up until the very end of the half, BYU had only had 3 possessions, Kansas State only 2. So a lot of running, a lot of clock came off that. I mean, a very fast first half is what it felt like. I couldn't believe both times. I was like, are we really done with the quarter? So if we look at it, the first possession, okay, I think there were some jitters. There were some drop passes, so that wasn't on Jake, but also completely. I mean, he threw rockets at these guys, so I don't know how easy it is to catch those. But Jake, although even see Roberts drop sometimes. So I think those are coming in hot. But Kansas State 12 plays, and they drove down the field, but we did kind of the bend don't break sort of thing. And then BYU 10 plays, so got a little more sustained, 41 yards, but still ultimately no points. So that was concerning. And then Kansas State did the same thing, drove down, ate a lot of clock, 16 plays, went the whole field, but they had to settle for a field goal. And then BYU kind of matched it and was also able to hit a field goal. And you're like, okay, you know what? We're holding them to field goals. I feel like BYU can pick up some chunk plays. We can do this and stay in this thing. This is exactly what we wanted. We wanted to keep the score low for BYU to have a chance to be in this. And so I felt pretty good about it. But then, the lid came off here or the wheels came off, whatever analogy you want to use. But Kansas State, and we know about the fumble. And from there, I think the crowd, probably, Kansas State starts getting doubting a little bit. The crowd's extra into it, and they're backed up there with the student section, and then the interception. And from there, they just were gone. But it was that fumble. And, again, BYU was able to capitalize on it, and then the half ended. And then we picked right up where we left off with another interception and another touchdown. And then, so the punt return. And so from there, and then anything after that, you can't read too much into, because again, BYU was playing a different game at that point, and yet we were still able to score another touchdown, which brings me to the last thing. Was just, we found ourselves a running back, and out of all those plays, like there were more glamorous plays there, but I think that touchdown by Moa was maybe my favorite, because it means that we got a dude that can cover people. I can't remember. I counted it once. It was like 7 different guys from Kansas State touched him, and he just found a way to keep going. And the touchdown didn't even matter that much at that point, and yet he was still pushing through, was not quitting, and he got it. So that one it was just for me the kind of the not the play of the game, but that one was I really came away excited about watching that, because I thought, okay, now just think if LJ Martin gets healthy and we've got ourselves a couple guys, plus Haunga and whatever, we've got some dudes and they're all young, that, this could be the running back core for for the near future.
Yeah. Yeah. It was a really exciting run. And he was running against a demoralized defense. And so I think we have to take that into account. Is Kansas State was just beat down. You see those guys were just throwing arm tackles at him at the end. He ran over about 4 dudes before he got to the end of the run. And I felt like the last 10 yards, he's just against the secondary who's just like, whatever. Like they were so demoralized. But the first 4 guys, I mean, he took some serious shots and just rolled off him. He had a run earlier in the game that was almost a touchdown that put him down to the 1-yard line, where he put a move on a linebacker and just really showed that wiggle, that ability to get to make a man miss. And I feel like we don't have that outside of LJ Martin. And maybe Haunga, he showed some potential there at Wyoming, but really our running backs have sort of we've missed that the past few years, that ability to make a man miss. And that's all you need in this offense is usually we're blocking and it's one guy, it's the linebacker stepping up to fill the hole. If you can make him miss, you've got some opportunity there. So that was fun. And I agree. It'll be interesting to watch this week at Baylor to see how he does. LJ Martin's not even on the depth chart, so they're going to rest him going into the bye week. He's going to come back against Arizona. And so this is the Sione Moa show at Baylor, who's got a great defense, and we'll see if he's going to be the real deal. But going back to the concerns about the offense, I don't have a lot of concerns coming out of this. To me, the identity of the offense through the first 4 games is they deliver when they need to. The SMU game is the anomaly, right, where everybody's panicked and wants to bench Jake Retzloff, and they come through with this amazing drive in the 4th quarter to go kick a field goal and win the game. Huge props to the offense for coming through in the clutch there and coming through when it mattered. And that's what it felt like in this game. BYU was hanging close. And when your defense, I don't know if it's a sports psychology thing where your defense is playing so well and you're thinking, don't mess this up instead of let's be aggressive and score points. But off of the turnovers, when BYU needed to, they punched the ball into the end zone. They were unstoppable. A-Rod, for being much maligned, called a brilliant game.
Yes.
In both halves, evolving the game plan as we ended up in a blowout. They did a great job. And so I have zero concerns about the low yardage output for the offense because they did exactly what they needed to do. I mean, they got a big lead. They hung on to it. We ended the game in victory formation because Enoch Nawahine went in there and ran for first downs again and again. And so it's plays like that says we have stepped forward so much, where it feels like in years past we just kind of putter away 3 and out and kick it to the other team and have to stop them with 30 seconds left as they're trying to drive and at least put points on the board, whatever it is. Us controlling the clock and finishing games like that is a huge improvement. And so I have zero concern about the output. My concern is the consistency, because I thought it was a brilliant offensive game.
I'm glad you mentioned that, and I can't believe it took us this long into it. Can we just, all the complaints? There's first Jake, and then A-Rod. So first of all, with Jake, I think we're just putting that to bed. I don't think we're going to talk about that anymore, at least for the foreseeable future. For now, like, is he perfect? No. Is he improving? Yes. Is he a gamer? Yes. Does that mean he still has some flaws? Absolutely. What quarterback doesn't, as they're making the transition? If he continues to get better and he's able to make those plays, kind of like Zach Wilson in the NFL, because in college I feel like Zach did everything, but especially in the near the end. But he can make those those throws that nobody else can. Maybe he struggles on those other throws that like everybody else can, but he can make some incredible throws. And so for now, he's the guy. I hope we beat Baylor by enough that Gary Bohannon can get in there and make some plays and actually do some work against Baylor? Yeah, I would love that.
Yeah.
I would love that for Gary. And unfortunately, for him, he's not going to get probably a full taste of revenge. But and then A-Rod, I've also seen him continue to adjust his play calling and do a lot of good things. And like you said, called a masterful game in this last game. And so I think his seed is cooling down a bit. We'll see how the rest of the season goes. It's a little premature, but I don't know. I'm kind of done with that discourse right now. Like for now, like let's put it aside. Maybe things change as we get in deeper into the season, but for now, we can just focus on football. Now we don't have to focus on the whole
The
QB
hot
battle.
seat and who's
Yeah.
coming in. I totally agree. I totally agree. We're settled for now. I'm still convinced at some point in the season there's going to be another big turnover game for Retzlaff. I want to see the consistency. Maybe I hope I'm wrong, but I'm sure it'll resurrect that. I don't think we're going undefeated as much as blue goggles I put on. At some point, we're going to lose a game, and then all of a sudden the finger pointing comes back, and could we won? And I don't know. At this point, I'm just stoked with the progress. We'll jump that hurdle when we come to it and calm down the critics again when that happens, because I think BYU is now firmly riding with Jake Retzlaff, and we're going to say he's going to get better throughout the season, and look what he can do. And I hope that continues for his sake because he's fun to watch.
And if there's still any doubters out there, I love that Kevin Young came to that game wearing a Jake Retzlaff jersey, because Kevin Young is the most beloved man among BYU fans right now. That he could do no wrong, and that he's supporting Jake. Like, let's all support Jake. Let's get on that
Yep.
train. Let's quit being so nitpicky. We are in a good place. We should be happy with what he's doing for us.
Yep.
So awesome. So let's get to this week's picks. Well, actually, first let's review last week's picks. There's a lot of red in that column.
There is a lot of red. Whew, whew, not my
We're not
best
used to
week.
seeing that for you.
Houston. Who picked Houston to be Cincinnati? I mean, they almost pulled it off, right? 34-0.
It was close. It was a close one.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. The ASU, I think they came back down to earth. Also, Cincy, that was a close loss to Pitt. Had they beaten Pitt, like I think they would be in a very different. We'd be talking about Cincy very differently right now, and that was
That's
a
true.
close game. So,
That's true.
probably not completely fair to them. And honestly, they're ahead of where I thought they would be at this point.
Yeah.
ISU, they're quietly going under the radar and not having a lot of fanfare ever since that Iowa game.
Yeah, I like them. I like them a lot.
I should mention West Virginia. I mean, that was a fun game, obviously delayed there for a while, but West Virginia pulled it out. And that's what I figured. I thought it would be a close game, but I just kind of believed a little bit more in West Virginia. I mean, two teams with their backs against the wall, but
Yeah.
at home.
Yeah.
So,
You got to get the home court advantage there.
ASU was exposed a bit, and Texas Tech has figured something out.
Texas Tech, that's shocking. I mean, it feels like Oklahoma State from last year where they started off so bad. I mean, not just slow, they started off horrendous, and you're thinking, well, that's a bad season, for OK State, or Texas Tech is going to have a rough go of it, and they are turning a corner. It's impressive what they did. I think Arizona State's a legit team. They'll have their growing pains, but Arizona State's going to be good, and Texas Tech pulled it out against them, and so that was an impressive victory. They needed that.
They sure did. Oklahoma State lost, and the score does not indicate by how badly they lost to a freshman quarterback coming into his first real road test. Welcome to the Big 12. And
that was disappointing by Oklahoma State. Their run game, with the greatest running back on the planet right now in college football, or supposedly, it's something's going on there. They got to figure that out, and maybe that's advantage to us since we come and get them at home in a revenge game. But I was really surprised by that.
Yeah, so they're looking more beatable. Of course, if it's anything like last year, they were hot and cold. So if they had a cold night, you don't want them to have a hot night. We don't. It's we play them just a few weeks away, so hopefully they don't figure too much out. But because
Yeah.
that game certainly looks more winnable. TCU, I will admit, I thought, I'll take all the praise from that win over SMU. I do think even if they do well this year, it's because of this easy schedule, and they're probably not as good as everyone's talking about them being. Their stats were against lesser competition, but I mean, look what they did to TCU.
I know, 66 points. Um, that made me feel really good going into last night's or Saturday night's game. That SMU is a legitimate offense, whether they're a legitimate team. I mean, TCU still put a 48 on them. It was a shootout, but SMU was running away with that thing through the middle of the game. So uh, I felt really good about what SMU. I hope SMU has a great year because it just makes us look better. But TCU, that's not a good look for them. That's not a good look at all. That team has been built on excellent defense. I mean, we weren't even in the same class when we played TCU last year, and it just makes me anxious to play them again. And that, speaking of improvement, makes you feel like the Cougars are making the jump. I know it's not always exactly the same thing, but they went into SMU, played at SMU a couple weeks after we did. I mean, this is pretty. It's almost as apples to apples as you could ever get in college football.
And a bye week
Um,
in between, right? So
yeah, I think so. I think so. So SMU's obviously figured some things out. I hope they have a great season, but TCU's got to be worried. That was ugly.
yeah, who knows? Maybe that'll end up saying more about TCU than it did SMU. But I'm gonna say, hey, look what we did to this team that just dropped 66 on
Right.
TCU, even if they're struggling. Colorado, I feel like America was rooting for Baylor, and they just found a way to lose that game.
They
But
did it. Two Hail Marys. I watched the second to last play there where they had the open Hail Mary touchdown and he dropped it. And then I switched back to BYU game. I'm like, oh, you're not going to get two shots at that. Obviously, Colorado lost and they completed the next pass. So I don't know what's up with the Baylor secondary, but you basically gave up two caught Hail Marys in a row. That was crazy.
wild stuff. Yeah, I had it on my phone while I was watching here on my other screen, and I was only catching glimpses of it. But and then obviously the Cougars. So let's go ahead and am I on the right screen here? Let's go check out our tally real quick here. So it's covered by that bar here. So
Made up a lot of ground there.
I did make up a lot of ground. I was falling very far behind and I'm closing in on you. So feeling good after this last week. We'll see how things continue here. So that gets us to this week. We're pretty similar across the board here. There's one big difference, and it's the kind of like the Cold War, where you have different wars that you're playing by proxy. The Soviets and the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
This one is kind of like, well, Utah's like, we beat OSU, BYU, hey, we beat Kansas State. So whoever wins here is going to say more about us. So I feel like we really need Kansas State to win this game.
Yeah, yeah, we do, and to me, it would be better for the Cougars if Kansas State wins that game. Certainly make more. It will legitimize our win more than any other. But I'll let our game against Utah when we beat them. That'll be the real war. So we won't have to fight by proxies anymore. I think Kansas State is shell shocked, and I don't know that we expose major weaknesses. And you hope it's a one off. I hope Kansas State has a great season. We just talked about Oklahoma State struggles, but I just feel like most seasons Oklahoma State digs deep at this point in the season. They just start to find ways to win. Gundy is such a good coach, and they seem to turn a corner. They get stronger as the year goes on. So I like Oklahoma State in this as a turning point in their season, but I think the odds favor the Wildcats. It's an upset pick.
Yeah, I'm going with Kansas State. It is at home, and they got thoroughly embarrassed, even though they felt like, hey, we were able to do what we wanted early on. Things got out of hand. Things snowballed. This can happen. I feel like there's a way to rally. Whereas OSU, I don't know what the path is because they were not able to do anything, and they were completely, what felt like completely neutered. And they're going to have their own, I guess, controversy. I don't know, debate about their quarterback situation going forward. Whereas
Yeah.
Kansas State, they know who they are, and they know it's proven. They just need to go out there and execute. And they're still that, as they kept saying in the broadcast, that three-headed monster in that backfield. And so
Yeah.
I still think Kansas State is going to be a force to be reckoned with. And I'm not, for the record, I'm not projecting BYU to make it to the conference championship game, but that's the only way that they would see each other again. If BYU were to somehow see Kansas State again, I'm not saying BYU couldn't win that game again, but we would not see the same,
I agree.
the same score. The game would look very different.
It'd be a different dogfight if we played them again.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
absolutely. So, so I think they're going to do really well. I still like Kansas State a lot to really compete in the conference. OSU, I've always have question marks, so it kind of depends on which one shows up. Quickly, let's run through these real quick because we have the same picks, but some of these should be good matchups. Like TCU, Kansas, two teams that are kind of reeling right now, but we both went with TCU. What was your thought?
Kansas cannot figure out their offense. They can't. Jeff Grimes can't put it together for whatever reason. Jalen Daniels is turning the ball over at a higher rate than even Jake Retzlaff. So he's struggling. I mean, he's throwing picks left and right. It is ugly right now for Kansas. And I feel like TCU, they hung with UCF the other week, barely lost that game. Maybe they stumbled against SMU because they were still reeling from a close loss to UCF. I don't know. But to me, TCU can bounce back better than Kansas can. I worry about Kansas this season. One or two, one more loss to TCU, and it's just demoralizing. And the guys start to lose hope, and then it's a different team moving forward. So I like TCU in this one because of that.
Hey, they're just getting back to their roots. They're playing real Kansas football.
Yes, they are. Yes, they are. Back to the classics. Dig
Yeah.
deep.
Basketball school. Okay. UCF bounce house, hard place to play. Colorado probably coming in off a little bit of a high. They buy their own hype. I think they're going to go in into a pretty tough environment.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't see Colorado even hanging close in this game. I think UCF is really, really good. I'll tell you, if Colorado wins, it changes the narrative on them completely, and they're a
Yep.
legitimate team if they win this game. But I agree with you. I think the culture's not there. I think there's a lot of me first football in Colorado, and I don't think that's going to do it against a team like UCF.
Okay, so ISU, Houston, I don't think there's much debate there. This one, the Texas Tech game, I actually thought, Cincy might not be a bad sleeper pick on this. I think people are sleeping on them. I think they could come in and cause some damage, but ultimately, I think Texas Tech has figured a few things out.
I'm still sleeping on Cincy. I am, and I don't know. I'm just not convinced. And they have a decent record, right? They just demolished Houston, but it just doesn't feel like they can get there. They're on the road against Texas Tech, and now I'm a huge believer in Texas Tech because of last week. So Cincy will play. They'll play the upset game every once in a while in the conference this year, but I think they're a year or two away from really being competitive.
Yeah, but it's certainly progress from where they were last year. And then this last pick, I hated to do it, but I figured you were gonna play. You're the pragmatic one, which is why you beat me in the picks. So I have to go.
I can't believe you. Is that a Utah logo on your column? I never thought I'd live to see the day. What?
I'm making up ground on you. I have to take this seriously. I can't go with my heart. So after what they did, I mean, their offense, kind of like the situation that BYU is seeing, except they've got a true freshman quarterback in. Their defense is so good that it can make up for a lot of mistakes from a young quarterback who's learning, and a very talented young quarterback, but he's still young, so he's going to make obviously have growing pains. Arizona was exposed a bit against Kansas State. They are coming in off of a bye, but I think that defense is just going to be tough, as much as I hate saying it, and it is in Salt Lake. So I hate to say it, but that team there with that logo, I think is going to win.
I think this speaks more to Arizona to me than to Utah. I
Okay.
don't think Arizona's good. I think they've taken a step back. I didn't like their coaching hire.
Yes.
I didn't feel like they pulled in someone who had a track record. I feel for them because I loved watching Arizona last year. It was so much fun brand of football. Coach leaves for Washington, and I just don't feel like they brought in a replacement who's going to be competitive, and it's already starting to show, despite a very, very, very talented roster. They don't have an offensive line. They've got a quarterback and a wide receiver, and the rest of the team, I don't know. And so I think Arizona's going to struggle a lot this year, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's tough because we were all excited to get them into the Big 12 and
Yeah.
watch them play. And yeah, so that was a bummer for a program that had struggled through A-Rod and Rich Rod, sorry,
Yeah.
and Freudian slip there. The no, and to see that program kind of pull out of that and have such a successful year, and no wonder Arizona fans are bitter. But let's get to the marquee matchup of the Big 12 next week. BYU at Baylor. So this for me, after coming off of what is an amazing game against Kansas State, seems very much like a trap game for BYU.
Yeah, yeah, big time. Because Baylor at 2-2 really needs a win. They're kind of at that inflection point in their season. Are they going to be competitive? Dave Aranda's coaching for his job here, and knows it. And so there's a lot of urgency around that program. They come off a heartbreaking loss at Colorado, a game they should have won. They had it in the bag and lost it. And that's going to do one of two things. And I think you're going to see. I think you're going to come and see Baylor just go crazy, and we're going to have it's kind of like catching a tiger by the tail, and we're going to have a tough time. Or they're going to come out and they're just going to be disheartened, and that's really going to signal where their season's going. And so I feel like this BYU team is good enough to withstand an aggressive Baylor team if they do bounce back and they're really playing good football for a half or three quarters. I think BYU can handle that if we bring our A game. On the flip side, we're coming off of this incredible historic victory. And can you keep your focus? Can you stay humble and hungry? Can you keep that 5-7 attitude that they've had all throughout fall camp, all throughout summer workouts? Do you maintain that? Is it drilled enough in them? And of course, the players are saying the right thing. Everybody walked away from the Kansas State win saying, "Hey, this was awesome, but let's get to work." And that's what you want to hear. But can they do it, right? Can they really dig down and focus after such an incredible victory on Saturday? So it has all the makings of a trap game, but you gotta feel like this defense. It doesn't matter where they're at home, on the road, P4, G5, FCS. So it doesn't matter. They have shown up every single week, and you feel like with that anchor in place, we've got a pretty good shot in this game.
Yeah, I think that was really well said. I got nothing really to add to that. Baylor does look like a tough defense. They have pieces there, and like you said, they're backed up against the wall. We're really going to learn a lot about that team on how they react. Now they could come out and play out of their minds, and BYU could still win this game. I think our defense is that good. Our offense is efficient enough, and especially finding a run game, if we're able to keep that going at all, that I think that's going to make BYU a tough out for Baylor. But yeah, we will learn a lot about this BYU team. But as you mentioned, we will see how their mindset is. And if anything has shown me this year, I'm starting to buy into that quiet confidence they had in the offseason, them coming into this season really with a prove it attitude. And so this to me does not seem like a team that is going to underestimate Baylor, but we will see. We're going to see how they react and how they play on Saturday. They have a very bad record when playing at these earlier games. Now, is that a meaningful stat? I don't know, but we will see. And yeah, so I do have a couple notes for A-Rod. If he's watching this, he's not.
I'm sure he's doing his film study with you right now.
So I know a couple a play that might work. Just why don't we just Hail Mary it? Just every play, because turns out they have no idea how to stop us.
I mean, you think about 50% completion rate on our Hail Marys, that'd be enough. I think that'd give us enough, handful of touchdowns. And poor Baylor, man. I love that fan base. Of any fan base in the Big 12, I love the Baylor fan base. Good people. I hope this is a budding rivalry. It'd be fun to have this as a rivalry in future years. But man, that is some serious heartbreak against a team that just loves to rub it in your face no matter what happens. I mean, Colorado talks smack more than anyone else in the conference, and so to lose one in that fashion against Colorado is just tough.
Oh yeah, and it would have been very satisfying to go into their house and to beat them. So I feel for Baylor. Question: since you brought it up, we do have kind of this brothers in arms sort of thing with Baylor going on, this brotherly love kind of rivalry. But I also felt like there was a lot of camaraderie with Kansas State, which is another team that I've kind of always liked for a lot of reasons.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
for a long time now, going back, obviously Bill Snyder and just kind of the team and their toughness and everything. So between the two, I mean, those I think after BYU would be my two in the Big 12. Do you agree with that? Do you lean one way or another over those teams?
No, I think so. As far as camaraderie amongst fan bases, I think there's a little bit with Houston. We joined the conference at the same time. Um, I personally like Iowa State. I don't know that there's much of a connection between fan bases there. That's just always a team that's kind of it's kind of like Kansas where they've struggled year over year, and they've got something right now, and they've got a head coach who's invested in the program long term and fun to watch. Um, but certainly as far as connecting with other fan bases, I think you see that. There's a little bit of TCU in there with the old Mountain West rivalry, but I don't know that there's a lot of camaraderie amongst those fan bases. There's still a rivalry there. But I think it is unique between BYU and Baylor. There's a mutual respect there that's been fun to watch that grow.
Yeah, in terms of Iowa State, I have no issue with him. Matt Campbell seems like a great coach, good guy, like what he's doing there. But yeah, the way the student body reacted both times BYU was considered for admission to the Big 12, I had to find reasons to dislike some of these teams as we get in with rivalries and get hyped up. And so I'm still holding that against Iowa State. And then what happened last year in football. So, but some great basketball matches against them.
Oh yeah,
So,
yeah.
Anyway, I was just wondering because I really, it was fun watching all the engagement on social media with Kansas State fans this last week, reminding me much of Baylor. So
Yeah.
they're kind of quiet right now because I think they're still reeling from this last weekend. But I expect that things will pick up there with Baylor fans as we get closer to it. So
Yeah.
very good, great. Well, we will see how we do. If again, only one game difference out of this, and so we'll see if K-State wins, then that means I'm just closing that gap even more. So
I feel you on my heels.
Keeping it competitive this year.
I gotta invest here. I gotta really dial in after this week.
Well, did you want to change your pick to Arizona or Houston?
Maybe probably Houston is really where I'd like to hang my hat with Houston again. Speaking of a poor fan base, man, you'd hate to be Houston right now. Always next year, guys. Always next year. You're building the program.
Yeah, I like Fritz, man. So I'm excited to see excited to the extent that what he can do with that program. I'm not excited to see play them once they get rolling. But all right, well, excellent. So as we said at the top of the video, if you haven't already, please like this, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, do all the things. It really helps us a lot, but also keeps the engagement going and the conversation, which is why we do this. And be sure to check out later in the week the Know the Foe segment. We've got our friends from talking to come on, talk about Baylor and from the our friends from Baylor. I don't want to get their name wrong. Anyway, they're coming on, and I'll post about that, and then do our best to get up and get live reactions after the game. It is in the middle of the day on a Saturday, which is terrible as night games are. This is even harder for me to make sure I can catch the whole game and a busy day. So hopefully we'll be on after and this week, but generally speaking, we will be on and have those live reactions afterwards. So again, subscribe and you'll be able to catch that. And Adam, great win. And as always, go Cougs.
Go Cougs.